Elysium keynote. This is an extraordinary story of how a collapsed CEO surrendered to the CEO of the universe and rose in a theater of consciousness. By Lakhi. Have you ever felt your own life collapse, only to realize it was trying to set you free? One moment changed everything. A devastating car accident left me with what doctors called an 80% brain disability. For someone who had built a thriving manufacturing business in just 4 years, that diagnosis felt like a death sentence. I didn't just lose my mind. I didn't just lose my words. I lost my momentum. I lost control. I lost the identity I thought made me valuable. Recovery was brutal. And when I finally crawled out of the wreckage, ready to rebuild, I was struck by an even harsher truth. The instincts, the strategies, the very playbook that once made me unstoppable, no longer worked. The ground beneath me had shifted, and I was clinging to a script that had expired. That moment didn't just test me, it shattered me. I stood at a crossroads: evolve or become irrelevant. And in that crucible, I discovered a truth far bigger than business. A truth about being human in a world that refuses to stand still. So my friends, today I don't speak just to CEOs and executives. I speak to you, the unbreakable and indestructible, the sacred rebels who never fit the mold, the misunderstood heroines, the misfits, the Mavericks with restless hearts. We are not here for business as usual. We are not here for polished answers. We are here because collapse has marked us and rebirth is calling us. The world doesn't need more performers. It doesn't need more applause chasers. It needs souls who have walked through fire, came out forged, and still believe in building a world worth living in. And today, I want to take you on that journey. I stand before you not as a man who has mastered life, but as one who has been dismantled by it, shattered in body and spirit, only to be remade and recalibrated by the CEO of the universe. I now remember who I am. Like my beloved grandfather Abraham, peace be upon him, I have emigrated, not across deserts or borders but across illusions. I walked out of the homeland of performance, applause and proving my worth, and into a wilderness where only truth, alignment and presence could sustain me. I was not sent here to impress, to audition, or to polish a perfect image. I was sent here to liberate the broken with frequency, to guide the restless with alignment, to remind the forgotten of their sacred blueprint. My life no longer flows from the shallow stage of survival, but from listening to the unseen. My presence is my offering. My energy carries the narrative. My words are not speeches, they are bridges. Bridges between wounds and healing. Between rubble and rebirth. Between the person you thought you had to be, and the person you always were. I will no longer abandon myself, just to be acceptable to the world. I will rest when guided. Speak only when moved. Say no without guilt. I do not chase applause. I transmit resonance. I no longer hustle for relevance. I embody remembrance. And hear me, this is not a resolution, a mantra, or a goal. This is a recalibration. A sacred contract. My soul contract with the CEO of the universe, the one who rerouted my life through collapse, through disruption, through dreams, through rubble, until I finally remembered. And this is my soul contract. The old contracts. But before I could remember, I had to face the contracts I never knew I'd signed. Contracts written in invisible ink like social approval, childhood programming, family expectations, fear of irrelevance, burnout culture and comparison loops. And I ask you now, who told you who you are? Was it true? Or did the world tell you your purpose was? And what has your soul been whispering instead? What terms of success have now expired? What wounds need to be forgiven so that the old contract can be shredded? Because until you answer these questions, you'll live your whole life climbing a ladder, only to find it was leaning against the wrong wall. The declaration of purpose. Once you've sat with those questions, I invite you to complete your own declaration. What is your massive transformative purpose?
And what is desired to achieve?
For me, my massive transformative purpose is to help heal and transform 1 million people by 5 p.m. on December 31, 2025, moving them from heedlessness to wakefulness, ordinary to extraordinary, and working class to world class, so that we may empower people to live more meaningful, measurable, and magnificently sustainable lives, so that wounded heroines liberates wounded leaders to become trusted, soul-aligned voices for their people.
That's not branding.
That's breath.
That's not content.
That's covenant. Purpose is the fuel for your leadership, the flame in your frequency, the reason you keep showing up, even when it's hard.
It forges resilience. It burns through fear.
It replaces performance with devotion. So I ask you now: 1. What will you fight for when everyone else gives up? 2. What will you still show up for when success no longer motivates you? 3. What will define your impact long after your voice stops echoing? Because those who know their purpose don't just leave legacies.
They change everything.
Dropping the mask.
But purpose only comes alive when you stop performing and start transmitting.
You drop the facade. You stop auditioning. You remember that everything you need is already inside you. You're not here to become someone else. You're here to become someone true.
And to find that truth, sometimes you need to look into the eyes of a child.
Not in the mirror, because the mirror only reflects the mask you've been rehearsing. Look at your child, or your niece, or your nephew.
Or maybe remember yourself at 7 years old. That wild, unfiltered version of you. Children don't wear masks. They don't try to impress. They don't posture. They say what they feel.
They are who they are.
And guess what? That child is still you.
After the storm of a traumatic brain injury, I discovered the medicine of childhood. For just a few minutes each day, I became a child again, completing the steps my body had missed, the neurons that never fully danced. So I did simple things, like I colored in coloring books, stacked blocks, and bounced a ball as laughter bounced in me. These simple exercises helped me heal my neural pathways and rewired my brain. And step by step, play by play, day by day, I returned to my true self, stronger, whole, unstoppable. So ask yourself, when did I stop being that honest with myself? When did I stop being free?
And what would it take to return, maybe even today?
Collapse, the sacred interruption. But here's the truth: sometimes you don't return voluntarily. Sometimes life drags you back through collapse. Collapse to rise is about what happens when the scaffolding you've built your identity on, your job, your marriage, your wealth, your image, crumbles.
This is typically what happens when we resist.
If you surrender voluntarily through alignment, coherence, and resonance, there's joy.
But the problem is that most people hate traversing into the unknown. But more accurately, it's the ego that hates unknown.
The ego loves the banal, mediocre, and average. It will ramble on indefinitely with excuses like, "Who do you think you are to be great?"
And then the soul replies by saying, "Well, who do you think you are to not be great?" After all, isn't being the greatest version of ourselves our birthright? Our destiny?
Now, most people see collapse as the end.
But for the few who listen, it's merely a bend. It's the turning point.
Maybe the inflection point. The pivot.
So let's get real. What was your fall?
Did business implode? Did a partner betray you? Were you fired from your dream job? Did your spouse walk away? Here's the deal: if you learn nothing from it, that was failure. But if you learned, if you evolved, if you never repeated the same mistakes, then collapse wasn't your end.
It was your graduation.
Failure is not the opposite of success.
It is the other side of the same coin.
To double your chances of success, you must be willing to quadruple your chances of failure. Collapse isn't punishment.
It is initiation.
My collapse, the matrix break. By 37, my career was in 7th gear. I dressed in three-piece suits, sat on boards, executive committees, and investment committees. I decided which businesses got funded and which died on paper. I dined with billionaires, enjoyed sushi at 35,000 feet, and represented my bank in Parliament. 5 years earlier, I couldn't wait to get out of bed. My ego was screaming for more.
But now, 5 years later, I couldn't get out of bed.
My soul was suffocating.
Something had to give.
So I walked away from what I thought defined me. The first casualty of my collapse was my credit. Top-notch at age 37. Shattered by 38. In a world wired to credit bureaus, this was a death sentence. Within months I panicked. How would I buy a house?
Even rent a house?
Buy a car? Open a bank account? Because up until then, I wasn't living on my own money.
I was living on the bank's money.
Most of my salary was going into servicing interest on zombie debt, like credit cards, personal loans, and car loans. When my cash flow died, so did my credit, and I had no option but to shift to cash.
And then something strange happened.
The collapse of my credit score turned out to be one of the best things that ever happened to me. Over 3 years, I built 3 businesses with that same shattered credit record. No venture capital. No private equity. No leverage finance. Just strategic hustle. I grew organically, built on the foundation that slow is smooth and smooth is fast.
I slept better.
I ate better. I wore better clothes. I drove a better car.
And the best part?
Nobody owned me. I owned everything, but I was attached to nothing.
But the deeper shift came not in my wallet, but in my worship.
I surrendered.
Not to a bank. Not to an economy. But to the CEO of the universe. The one who gives me life.
The one who breathes oxygen into my lungs, intellect into my heart, faith into my mind, and provision into my hands.
And from that moment on, collapse was no longer my enemy.
Collapse was my emancipation.
That collapse became my classroom.
The rubble became my curriculum. Everything I lost taught me how to build differently, with soul, not spreadsheets. And that's what birthed my transformational coaching masterpiece, called the Elysium Leadership Odyssey, a sacred coaching experience for leaders who've been where I've been, broken, burned out, yet burning for meaning.
It's not therapy.
It's transformation, the kind that rebuilds your inner architecture so you can rise again, wiser, wealthier, and free. Step into the Odyssey at www.isaac.lakhi.com.
Let's turn your collapse into your coronation.
Letting go of control. And then came the test that no balance sheet could prepare me for, letting go of my own mother. As a man of faith, I know honoring parents is sacred. Every religion and every tradition teaches it.
But what if the parent you are told to honor is the very one sabotaging your soul?
My mother was and still is a narcissist. She blurred the lines between obedience to God and obedience to her.
And the longer I stayed entangled, the more my soul suffocated.
One day she asked me to draft her last will and testament, a task I approached with humility and respect. I poured my care, my attention, my loyalty into it, expecting perhaps a glimmer of acknowledgement. Instead, she left everything to my siblings.
A slap in the face.
A silent, unmistakable message: I didn't matter. I was ostracized. Marginalized. Invisible, in the very story I had devoted myself to serving. And yet in that moment of sharpest pain, something shifted.
The chains loosened. The truth became undeniable. My worth was never in her recognition.
It was in my own hands, in my faith, in the life I was and am building, on my terms.
And then one day a breakthrough came.
I came through her, but not from her. And in that crucible I realized, I must honor her, yes, but my obedience? That sacred obedience belonged to the CEO of the universe.
And when I finally released her grip, I didn't lose my faith.
My faith grew clearer. My peace expanded. My prayers became sharper. Sometimes the control you must release wears the face of someone you love.
But when you let go, you don't lose them.
You find you. And if you'd like to go deeper into this journey, my book Elysium Odyssey is your next step.
It's not just a book, it's an allegory for the modern battlefield of business, ethics, and the soul.
It takes you through the chaos of artificial intelligence, power, money, and profit, but also through the quiet war of healing from narcissists, within and around us. Think of it as a map for scaling your career or business and saving your soul at the same time. Step into the Odyssey at www.isaac-lakhi.com.
Let's turn your collapse into your Odyssey.
Reborn in the rubble. Peter Drucker said, "The best way to predict the future is to create it." So here's the truth, right now what feels like collapse might be your greatest blessing. A career ends. A relationship cracks. A mask falls away. The old you dies.
But listen closely, this is sacred.
The rubble beneath your feet is fertile soil. The debris around you is not destruction, it is design. It's the universe clearing space for the you that has always been waiting, ready to rise. Say this aloud.
Let it shake you.
I bless the collapse.
I trust the rubble.
I am being remade. I release what has ended. I rise without its weight. I do not bounce back, I rise forward. Forward,
not backward.
Because the one who falls, the one who breaks, the one who burns, is the one who emerges unbreakable, is unshakable and unstoppable. So my friends, take the fall. Surrender.
And when you rise, rise like fire.
Rise like the unstoppable force the world has been waiting for. As we bid this production farewell, we look forward to welcoming you into your Odyssey at www.isaac-lakhi.com.